a significant number of changes in web forms. And then we've got a couple of save the date items. So those are the items that we are going to be covering today. And I'm not too sure if our guest has arrived yet.
Not yet. I'm going to resend the links because I don't think they're registered either. So I don't know what happened there. I think I have their emails on file.
When I sent it, she replied that she had it.
She got it? Okay.
You better send it again, I guess.
Yeah, I'll do that again. Okay.
I see there's a couple of chat items. Are they just hellos? Oh, there we've got.
Yeah. Well, Jess is one of the hottest trainers in the marketplace right now. Her focus is taking social media leads, and many of you take the leads and you think, wow, you just email them once or talk to them once, and nothing happens. And her whole process is how you build the leads, but you identify which leads are going to relate to yourself. And she has a book on it right here. I guess I'm holding it up. I don't know if you can see it. More. There it is.
Oh, good. Yep.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, it's called More Money, Less Hustle. We're gonna get some copies after the session for people that are really interested in it. And she runs this program called the Listing Lab, which is I can tell you that and there she is. I can tell you that a half a dozen of Tim's people are already students. I think people in our company, this is a real opportunity too. So are you there, Jess?
I am. Hello.
Hello. Yes.
Hey,
So
Jess, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm coming to you. I'm in New York City. I'm at Inman, so I'm in a hotel room.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to turn it over. I know you're tight for time today, so I'm going to turn it over to you and just jump right in.
Amazing. How much time do I have, just so I can adjust and make sure that I don't take too long? Or
well, how much time would you like? We planned at least 30 minutes, but
perfect. That's wonderful.
Okay. And then we'll talk about how we can get hold of your book afterwards.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So am I able to share my screen, if that's okay?
Yes, that should be fine. I might have to stop sharing. Hold on 1 second.
No problem. So can you guys see this?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So hello. I will give you a quick little rundown in a minute of who I am if you don't know who I am already. I met Jeff the other day I met Jamie the other day at the Remax Ultimate event. So he was kind enough to invite me to say hi to you guys today. I'm hoping that all the internet remains strong. The hotel internet is absolutely terrible. So I am connected. I'm connected to my hotspot, and I've got my phone in the window. So we're making do with what we've got here. But I'm going to go through a training today that I think is going to be something that you may or may not have really heard before, something that may be kind of new to you. And so I want to give you an opportunity as well. At the end, I'm going to give you my contact information if you have any questions, because I'm going to go through this in 30 minutes, but there's a lot of depth here. So there's a lot of content, and I'm sure some of you guys are going to have questions. So let's get rocking and rolling. Are we recording? All good?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. So if you haven't been to one of my trainings before, I always start my trainings this way. To get the most out of a training, and I promise you, I'm gonna bring the goods today. the best way to get the most out of this is do not disturb your phone, close out your tabs, really be here, use the chat box. I have it open. And if there's a question or something that I think is going to be relevant to everyone, I will answer it. Turn your camera on. There's been a lot of studies recently that really go into depth about how much more people get out of things if you actually have your camera on. Hi, Pamela. And then really decide how you want to show up, ask questions. This training specifically is for agents who want to be able to use digital marketing to grow their business. Maybe you've been doing some of the more traditional methods for a little while and you're really wanting to kind of update what you're doing in 2023. Maybe you've been trying to figure out some digital marketing stuff. You're either overwhelmed, what you're posting isn't really working the way that you were hoping it would. And as always, the people who are going to get the most out of this are going to be people who take action and really start implementing right away. So here's what we're going to talk about. The 45 minutes, I'm going to make 30 minutes. I'm going to make sure that we go through this nice and concisely. We're going to talk about niching down for success using psychology. We're going to talk about where to use your content, where to use your marketing, on what platforms based on your niche. I'm going to go through the 9-point messaging framework to take someone from complete stranger to inbound client. And I'm also going to go through the 9 types of content that correspond to that framework to actually facilitate it. So the foundation of all marketing is relevancy. We know this, right? So relevancy really happens when the messages that you're sending out, whether it's email, whether it's social media, whether it's website, even whether it's direct mail, it has to speak directly and powerfully to the people that you're actually wanting to attract. When that happens, it becomes clear to those people, they're educated on who you are, what you do, and why you're the best choice for them. And when you become really relevant, people see you as someone that they're interested in doing business with, and you don't fall into that category of every other agent out there. Now, this might surprise some of you because the way that we niche down has changed dramatically over the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years. So we no longer niche down in terms of property type. We no longer consider luxury to be a niche because it's not a psychologically driven niche. We also don't use farm areas or geolocation areas anymore because we have this incredible tool called the internet that allows us to target and niche down differently and in a more relevant, more psychologically driven way. So what we want to do when we're talking about targeted messaging, we're talking about breaking through all the noise that all the agents are out there. And I mean, I'm an Inman. I've been listening to certain talks, and there's been some that I think are absolutely fabulous. There's also some that I think are really outdated. And a lot of the outdated ones are still pushing this very vague messaging. Things like, I'm here for all of your real estate needs. I can help you buy, sell, rent, and invest from here to Timbuktu. And even things that are more tagline focused as opposed to value proposition focused, because there's just too many agents now. In order to just throw something out there and have it work, it has to be targeted. So when we're talking about human-based niches, we're talking about niches that focus in on a life transition. Or people, I mean, we all know people don't move because it's fun. I moved a year ago. Don't suggest it. It was very stressful. So, but the reason why people do move is specifically because there's something in their current situation or their current life that they're trying to remedy. They're moving away from pain and towards pleasure, just like any decision that people make psychologically in life. And so what we're really wanting to focus on instead is human-based or life transition-based niches. So upsizers, downsizers, first-time buyers, people who have something in common. So different communities, the LGBTQ+ community, first-time investors, second-time investors. And you'll see that I've split those two up because the value proposition that a first-time investor is going to be attracted to versus a very seasoned investor, they're very different. So young families, which can also be upsizers, but sometimes are not. We really just want to focus in on what is actually going to connect with them. And a lot of time when we're talking about marketing, the key to understanding what really good marketing is it's not having your audience understand you. It's actually for your audience to feel understood by you. And that's really key. It's a key differentiator. People want to know that you get them. They want to feel like you understand what's in the back of their head better than anybody else, because then they'll automatically credit you with the solution. They'll feel understood, they'll feel connection. And just like we all know, everyone makes emotionally before we make them logically. So when we're, the number one question that I get from people is, do I have to be on TikTok? Do I have to be on Facebook? Should I be on Instagram? Like, what platforms should I be on? Do I have to be everywhere? The answer is, I don't know. It depends on what niche you're focused in on. So then what we truly want is we want you to be where your niche spends time. So if you're focused in on downsizers, TikTok is definitely not going to be the right place for you. We want to be going where they spend the most time. If you work with young professionals, and I'm going to show you some examples in a minute, but if you work with young professionals, then yeah, LinkedIn is going to be a really great tool for you. But if you're not working with people who would be on LinkedIn, don't spend your time creating for a platform that you're not going to get very much traction with. So this is the step-by-step. And if you take one screenshot this entire presentation, I hope it's this one, because this is the step-by-step order in which you need to build any kind of marketing, but specifically any kind of digital marketing. And so a lot of the time what people do, especially in real estate, is they start with step 7 and they skip steps 1 to 6. Now, when you do that, what ends up happening is I get people who are like, oh, Facebook ads don't work, or internet leads are really bad. Well, the reason why that happens is because you haven't done any of the foundational work in order to make sure that the paid traffic that you're running is relevant, it's going to connect, and it's already been vetted, and the results have already happened organically. So you start with niching down. You choose that targeted human-based niche. You do market research interviews. So instead of trying to sit in a vacuum and guess what is the messaging that's going to work in my market, you go out, you interview, you do with the market research interview. Even big corporations like Nike, they have an entire division of their marketing department that does nothing but market research constantly, so that they know that the money that they're putting behind their ads, the money that they're putting behind the message that they're putting out there is going to work, is going to resonate, and is coming directly from the market. Then you map the message with the 9-point psychology that I'm going to talk about in a second. Then you set up platforms, then you do content strategy. So you can't just you can't skip any of these steps. Otherwise, there's really no guarantee that the marketing is going to work. Once you have consistent business coming in organically, so if you're not getting 3 to 5 deals a month inbound from your organic marketing, social media, email, and the messaging's not hitting, you should not be running paid traffic. You shouldn't be spending money on ads before you know that the message works. It ends up being a waste of money. So now we get to go into the 9-point framework. This is really about creating a funnel that speaks directly to your client's pains and desires. But the first thing I want to do is define the word funnel, because a lot of people think is just a series of options. Like, I'll ask people, tell me about the funnel that you've been running, or if you haven't been, what you're thinking about doing. And what they'll tell me is Facebook lead form, or Facebook to landing page, to email sequence, to retargeting. And I'm like, okay, but that's the functions. Tell me about the funnel. A funnel is a psychological journey from stranger to client. If the messaging isn't dialed in, it doesn't matter what tech you're using, it's not going to work, because your focus is on the wrong thing. And most funnels fail because people focus on the system instead of the psychology. So if you've tried ads, you've tried funnels, you've hired agencies, it probably wasn't the strategy that didn't work. It was the avatar, or the offer, or the promotion of the service, or the message. So something was off from a psychological standpoint. So let's get into the psychology. There are 3 things that we need to do in order to make the psychology land. And you have to sell 3 things. You have to sell the problem, you have to sell the process, and you have to sell the solution. So these are the things that if you nail all 3 of these psychological sales, then that's really when you get that inbound client. You get those people calling and saying, hey, I'm ready to go, come list my house. And this will work both with like cold people, cold audience, online audience that you don't know, but the same thing will work with past clients, database, referrals, all of that sphere stuff as well. So let's start with sell the problem. We always talk about pain points, right? In marketing. Marketing is all about understanding pain points. So what are they experiencing? What's actually driving the move? You want to be able to describe it. And again, if you're thinking right now, how do I know? Market research. And if you want market research questions, send me an email. I'll give you my email later, and I will give you the exact questions that you need to ask in order for this to land and for you to get the right information. So the pain point is, what are they experiencing now that will drive the move? And you need to understand it and be able to articulate it in visual, emotional language. That's really how people are going to feel like you understand them. The next thing is, what's the problem? So what they're experiencing is the symptom of the problem. So the pain points are the experiences. The problem is what's really going on. Is the problem that they have one bathroom, or they don't have a parking space, or like what is it? What is the thing that's actually causing them to experience difficulty? And then we have stakes and consequences. So what happens if they don't do anything about it? What is their experience going to be? Because we always know cost of inaction, or COI, is always worse over time. So if they are in the same situation in a year or 5 years, and they're not actually doing anything about it, where are they going to be? How much worse are the pain points going to get? So we need to understand all of that in order to be able to paint that picture. Then we have sell the process. So who are you? What qualifications do you have? And qualifications, I'm not talking about what awards have you won and what your sales volume is. I'm talking about, have you lived through the current situation that these people are in? Have you upsized? Have you downsized? Have you upsized or downsized your parents? Are you a seasoned investor? So allow people to get to know you and your story a little bit more, so that they can actually see you as an expert, not only in the buying and selling of real estate, because we all know that every single person out there knows 5 agents. So it's not a matter of, are you good at buying, like, do you get great results of that? That's a bare minimum. Then we have to actually map out a process. And if you haven't built a signature process or a signature methodology, that's also something that is probably missing from your marketing. Because every business has a product or a service. And if you are selling yourself, that's much more difficult to do than selling an actual product or a service. So, as an example, I'm going to use Justin in Burlington. So Justin Loncarrick in Burlington, agent for his whole life, grew up in the business, was doing about 150,000. And when he built out his home run method, his and followed the 9-point framework, his business went from about 150,000 to 7 figures in 8 months. He did 850,000 in GCI in 8 months. And that happened because he was no longer just saying, hey, look at me, I'm the best. And he actually shifted the messaging into, I have a signature process that specializes in upsizing families. And this is why it works. And this is why it's the best. And this is why you need it. Then we have social proof or testimonials or case studies. And this isn't just, I have business, therefore I should have more business. This is, I have happy clients. And so we're going to really move away from just listed, just sold, things like that, because really at the end of the day, that allows you to get just lumped into all the other agents who are doing kind of lazy social media marketing. And what we're going to focus on instead is high quality, high value, psychologically driven content. And so when it comes to proof, and I'm going to talk about this when we get to the content types, you really, really want to make sure that you're giving testimonials, case studies, PR, and really giving driving that trust forward. Then we have sell the solution. So what are the objections that you're getting? So many people wait until a listing appointment to handle objections or a buyer consult. Why would you do that? You're making it so much harder on yourself. If you can handle objections in marketing, then it makes the actual process much easier. And most people don't have those inbound clients on a regular basis that feel like they're coming out of nowhere because they specifically aren't handling objections. And people they still have those objections floating around in their sometimes in their mind. Sometimes they're just your regular real estate objections, but today they're also market, interest rate. There's an extra layer of objection handling that actually has to happen in your marketing today to be able to handle all the uncertainty that's coming at people. And then we have vision. So let's paint the picture of where these people actually want to be. Again, people move away from pain and towards pleasure. So what does that pleasure actually look like? Where could they be in 6 months if they actually take action? What does their life actually look like? What are the results? What are the outcomes? And so this also allows people to feel like you truly understand where they're going and what they want. And then we've got action. What's the next step? Do they book a call with you? Book a listing appointment? What do you want them to do next? And call me is not a good call to action anymore, because depending on who you're working with, but the majority of people do not communicate over phone calls as an initial point of contact. So what we truly want is we want to put the right call to action in front of people. Think about what is the easiest action for them to take. And the call to action has to fit the type of content. And I told this story 2 weeks ago, but sometimes I will see people who will tell these beautiful stories about like the birth of their child. It's emotional, it's raw, it's a beautiful story. And then at the end it says, call me for all your real estate needs with someone's phone number. There's nothing that feels more yucky than something like that. And it doesn't fit. So we want to make sure that the call to actions that we're using specifically fit with the type of content that we're putting out there. So when we're talking about the sequence as a whole and how it all fits together, this is what it looks like. These are all the pieces that you need to hit in order for someone to be that inbound client. And then once you master the sequence, you will break through the rest of the noise. And this is a really great example. This is Heather. I used a Toronto example. Heather, we mastered her messaging. We used her organic platforms consistently. She compounded it over time. She did 150 million in volume in 6 months from social media. Like, this is not I'm not talking like, oh, you'll get a couple deals here and there. It may start like that, but when things really start to compound and when that consistency really, really starts to build, we're talking huge numbers. And the numbers are that way because 99% of agents out there, especially in a metropolitan city, are not using social media well. So the people who do, and this is just organic. Imagine you take something like results like these organically, and then you add paid traffic to them. You're basically putting gasoline on an already burning bonfire. And so that's really why I'm talking about this, because she doesn't have to do follow-up calls. She doesn't have to, she's not manually prospecting anymore because 100% of her business comes inbound. And it compounds and compounds and compounds over time. Her team is growing at an astronomical rate at the moment because she has more and more business coming in. These are just more examples of other people who have had the same thing where I've said to them, you can have this kind of business. And they were like, okay, let me just follow the process. And it created crazy results for them. But again, it requires consistency. So I'm a really big believer. Your database is, we've all heard your network is your net worth. But your network is not only just going to be the people who are in your CRM or your 15 people that give you the most referrals every year over year. You can actually build audience now, an engaged audience that will become your new SOI. So you can do that over any of these platforms: email, Instagram, Facebook business and personal. Your Facebook business page organically will never do very much, but that's okay. You've got 5,000 potential leads that you can put on your Facebook personal page. LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, SEO, website, blogs, things like that don't perform as well anymore, but they're still there. And if that's the preferred method that you want to use as a secondary source, great. But the answer is that all of these things can be compounded. Now, once we've gotten the organic stuff really firing, then we go into paid marketing. So paid marketing, it doesn't really matter where the cold lead comes from. It's cold. It can come from Facebook, it can come from YouTube, it can come from a website, it can come from Google. It's all going to be cold. It's all going to be not great starting out. But when you invest the time and energy and money after the fact to warm that lead up, to get that person from stranger to client through retargeting campaigns, through email campaigns, that's really where the magic happens. So this is another example. So Darren's just north of the city. Just north of Toronto. And he did, the year before last, he did 112,000 in GCI. Then this screenshot was taken in June. So June of last year. So he essentially 7 times his business in a year. So again, big numbers, big number changes, and all of it came from social media. So now that we've kind of talked about the psychology side of it, we get to talk about the content. And the content is actually what's going to facilitate the psychology. So there's 3 buckets of content that you want to be focusing on. And you want to really split these up relatively evenly. Personal content, authority content, and social proof content. So starting with personal content, personal beliefs, personal philosophy, personal story, and lifestyle. We all know that the foundation of relationships or marketing is building that element of know, like, and trust. So know, like, and trust is someone feeling comfortable and trusting of you. If they don't know anything about you personally, that's impossible. So personal content, as much as people will sometimes say, this is about my business, this isn't about me, there's a certain element of influence and authenticity and knowledge that someone has to have of you in order to build that trust. So personal beliefs are going to be things like things that you believe in life. It can be something as simple as, I think honking when you're driving is rude. Someone is going to agree with that. Talk about it. Talk about, I think that, it can be something in real estate. It can be something outside of real estate, but talk about who you are and what your beliefs are. Your personal story also matters. And lifestyle. People, as much as I think that my life is incredibly boring, I am a homebody. I like to read books. People really love to follow along to someone who's different than them. So really, really use the personal the personal content to build that initial connection and relationship. And then we have authority content. So this is teaching content. This is showing people that you are credible and you know what you're talking about. So authority value content, which is tips, tricks, teaching, all of those things. Process solution, which is your signature system that we talked about before, your methodology. And myth busting. Myth busting content is so powerful. Something like the truth behind open houses. Or what does sold over asking really mean? Those types of myth busting content in real estate will actually build more trust. Leah has a question. Can an agent start off with one niche and change it over time? Absolutely. And you will, as a newer agent, kind of grow. If you start with that, you will kind of grow up with your clients as well, and your audience will continue to compound with those people. So this is absolutely 100% correct. And then we have social proof. Social proof is going to be case studies, testimonials, and PR. Now, my number one tip for testimonials or reviews, screenshot them. Delete Canva off of your computer. So many people want to make everything so beautiful and so pretty, and that's so 2015. In 2015, everybody wanted these beautiful curated feeds. That's not the world we live in anymore. That doesn't work anymore on social media. And so what people want is they want things that look real. And when you design things or over design things in something like Canva, especially when it comes to testimonials, they can be faked and the trustworthiness of them drops. So it doesn't matter if it's ugly. Ugly means authentic in today's world. So take screenshots, post screenshots. You can, blur people's names or phone numbers out of things, no problem. But don't alter the image. Keep it as real and as authentic and as trustworthy as possible. Now, case studies, I have entire trainings on all of these. So if you want any of that, just send me an email. I'll send you anything that you need. But case studies are the stories of your clients. This is really how instead of your just listed, just sold, this is going to be so much more powerful. And the reason why this works is stories are 22 times more memorable than facts. So if you can tell the story of a client that you've worked with who had similar pain points, similar problems, you talk that person through the process. What does the process look like? Where did they end up? You can paint the entire experience in the entire picture. And you can show people and paint, and basically you can paint the vision of where the majority of your clients want to get to, or the majority of your prospects want to get to, through the story of someone else. Lastly, we have PR, and PR is essentially just media. Articles written about you, blogs written about you, podcasts, being interviewed by media outlets, things like that. And if this is something that you're like, oh, no one's ever reached out to me, my question to you would be, have you ever reached out to a journalist? Because journalists are just content creators. They're constantly looking for content. And so if you can make a relationship, and there's a website, I'll put it in the chat right here. It's just called HARO, which is Help a Reporter Out. And Help a Reporter Out, you can sign up for free, and you'll get emails every day of journalists who are looking for comment on whatever your topic of expertise is. And if you respond, chances are they may use your quote in different publications. And then guess what? You're being featured in the media. And this works so well because people then you can not only get in front of those new people, but also you can use those articles and that media attention in front of your current audience to create even more trust and even more credibility. I've gone over my 30 minutes. So I just wanted to leave you with, this is my book. And I know that Jamie had talked about it at the beginning. It's available on Amazon, on Audible. Everything that I teach is geared around efficiency. So being able to create more with less. Because I think that there's a lot of really kind of more traditional ways that people have done things for a really long time. And I'm not saying that those don't work, but they're also not necessarily the most efficient. And we have these incredible tools nowadays that can actually allow us to have more success with less effort and less time and less hustle. Sonia has a question. As agents, we have the fiduciary duty of confidentiality. Yeah, 100%. You don't even have to use their names. You can get permission to use their names. Most clients don't care. Most clients, if you say, hey, do you mind if I tell this story? Then they're going to be like, yeah, of course. Like, it was a great experience working with you. So a lot of the time you can just kind of talk about the process and get their permission. We have people who will do video case studies with their clients, and their clients will tell the story. So it's really just a matter of like, ask if it's okay. And if it's not, then just don't use their names. If you want to, so I'm going to drop my email in here as well, because I'm sure that there's other trainings that you guys may want. You may have questions. I am a 100% open book. I'm here for whatever it is that you need. Send me an email. Ask me any questions that you want to have. If you want other trainings on, I have entire trainings on how to niche down. I have entire trainings on content and give examples. I have, trust me, if you have the question, I probably have a training for it. So feel free to send me an email. I don't want to take up too much time. And if you're like, hey, I already know I want to have a conversation with you about my business, about kind of getting to those numbers that you were talking about, also totally fine. You can book a call using the link on this page. That's it. Questions? Good? Happy? Okay. Well, if you guys need anything, you let me know. I am 100% here for whatever it is that you need.
Excellent.
And I hope this was helpful. And I'm sorry I went over time. I tried really hard.
No. We're going to reach out to you after the session anyway, Jess. That was fabulous.
Yes,
Jamie,
thank you so much.
fabulous. Thanks, Pamela.
See you later, Jess.
You guys enjoy the rest of your meeting, and thank you for having me.
You
Our
betcha.
pleasure. All right, I think, Jamie, we're moving over to you. Has Gerry also arrived as yet?
Yeah, I saw him
Yeah,
come in.
I see Gerry.
Okay.
Hi, Gerry. We're just going to give Jamie a couple seconds and then we're going to transition over to you.
Okay, I'm here.
Perfect. We have a really busy meeting today, so I'm going to keep my remarks on the market fairly brief. You know, people, this is general. People, buyers and sellers, they crave certainty before they will act. That's human nature. So what does that mean? Buyers and sellers, they want certainty over real estate prices. They want certainty over mortgage rates. And we don't have that right now. You know, we're going to find out that hopefully this is the last rate increase. And then we're going to have a certainty in terms of mortgage rates. And Roy Cocciollo will talk more about that. Certainty in terms of prices, we have to know when we've reached the bottom of the market. I happen to feel we're fairly close, but until people believe that we reached the bottom of the market, I'm going to sit on this. The other point I want to make is we're negative press, because what happens with negative press? Everybody talks about year-over-year stats. So heading into this year, year-over-year stats for January, February, and March are going to be terrible because last year was so buoyant. Once we get to April, the news is going to be much better in terms of year-over-year stats. It's the same thing with inflation. Everyone talks about year-over-year inflation, and that's comparing to last year. If you look at inflation over the last 6 months, it's pretty well flat. So all I'm saying is inflation is going to drop dramatically as we get into April, May, and June. So I see those as all good things. What we have to learn is still to be a little patient. I would be out talking to my clients about what's coming down the pike. I would get them ready because I believe it's, you know, this market's like a dam, and the dam will break and then it'll be a really strong market. But we have to get the dam broken. So you need to educate your people to get ready to go now. I think Roy Cocciollo is going to talk about the numbers of pre-approvals he's starting to see and do, just astronomical. So people are getting lined up. That's what you need to do with your buyers, get them pre-approved, educate your sellers and tell them they want to be ahead of the curve in terms of reaching the market. So that's my overview of the market. I wish I could tell you exactly where the bottom of the market is. I do think it's another month or two out, but that's just my opinion. So anyway, that's it for my views on the market and what we have to do to be proactive over the balance of the year. Look, people have to move. and just talked about pain points. People need an extra bathroom. They need another bedroom. People have to downsize. People have, people are getting divorced. There's all sorts of reasons why real estate is going to happen. And everybody's put them on pause and they're going through pain. And as Jess says, we need to help people alleviate the pain. Okay. Thanks so much, Pamela.
Is Pamela still? I'm gonna go straight to oh,
Pamela,
Pamela,
unmute
you're muted.
Who?
Pamela,
Who's
you're muted.
Pam, unmute yourself.
there
Thank you.
Perfect.
So thanks. I wanted to say thanks to Gerry Miller for joining us today. And again, people, you may have some questions. We've given Gerry a few topics to discuss with us. But again, if you've got additional questions, please pop them in the chat. And welcome, Gerry.
Thank you, Pamela. Before I start, I wanted to comment on two things. I came in at the end of Jess's presentation and I found it fascinating. I'm hoping you're taping this so that someone can send me the recording so I could watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
The messaging was excellent. I really wish I would have been able to get on earlier. To jump onto what Jamie is saying, and let me give you my impression of the market. At the present time, what I see is that there's a stalemate between buyers and sellers. Buyers are waiting for the market to drop more because that's what the media is saying, and sellers are still stuck back in higher prices. And so everybody's looking at each other waiting for the pin to drop. But as Jamie says, there is a dam, and more pressures on the dam because young people who traditionally start at the bottom of the market buying condos are getting restless. They're fatigued at not being able to buy, and there's going to be once some stability is reached, and that happened today, I believe. There will be movement in that younger demographic, and once that starts to happen, you're going to see things start to roll. And I really anticipate by the end of the second quarter and the third quarter, you're going to see things starting to move, and then by the end of the year, we're going to have a positive year. So in the context of getting yourself ready, you got to get yourself ready with your rubber boots on when that dam breaks. That's my view. Okay, quickly, because I know what everybody has been on for a while. Jamie has asked me to talk about three things: the Municipal Tax Act, and that's with respect to Toronto, Hamilton, and Ottawa, I believe, right now. Prohibition on foreign buyers and taxation of foreign buyers, and finally, fraudulent sales and the agent's responsibility. If you have any questions, by all means, throw them in the chat, and I'll be happy to try and answer them. The vacant home tax exists in Toronto, Ottawa, and Hamilton, and it is intended to encourage owners to rent out their properties in order to increase the supply of affordable housing in the city. Everybody would agree that that makes sense. It makes no sense to have thousands of homes sitting empty while we have a housing crisis. Presently, all residential property owners, I'm going to talk about Toronto because that's our geographic location, will be required to declare the status of their properties during the previous year. So for last year, by February 2nd, every owner is going to have to file a declaration. Now, the tax is 1% of the current value assessment. It's kind of strange because everyone knows the current value assessment is really not the true value of the home, but that's what the legislation says. So simply a $1 million property, that tax would be $10,000 a year. Now, I have a lot of clients who own condos in the city, and they use their condos in the same way other people would use a cottage. They come into the city from Kingston, for example, or they live year round at their cottage, and because they love the theater, they love the entertainment scene, and they come in every few weeks to stay at their condo. Well, these people now are going to be subject to that tax. Owners typically will have to file the declaration by filing with their assessment roll number. That's the assessment roll number found on your tax bill. So there's going to be a real drive and questions from your clients as to how to avoid it. In order not to pay it, of course, owners have to live in their property as their principal residence for at least 6 months. And they need to prove that through things like their driver's license or OHIP registrations or the utility bills, etc. I've had numerous calls from people who indicate that they live 6 months of the year in the United States, 6 months of the year in Canada. Does that mean they have to pay the tax? I said, well, it's all based on facts. If you're 6 months in a day in the United States, then yes. If you're not, then no. But most Canadians who do have a home in Florida, for example, they don't spend more than 6 months a year away from home because then it impacts their OHIP. But I had a question this week where a couple have their principal residence here in Canada. They've moved to the United States for work, but they don't want to pay tax in Canada. And they're not in Canada for more than 6 months in a year. They, unfortunately, I had to tell them they have to pay the tax. Now, what happens if people lie? Of course, lots of people are going to lie on their declaration. The city will be entitled to audit the owners if they suspect that there was a fraudulent or improper declaration filed. How they're going to do that and how they're going to administrate that, I have no clue. It seems to be a really odd attempt by the city to solve a housing problem. I'm not sure it's going to work because they're just going to create more bureaucracy, but time will tell. We'll wait and see. So what happens if one of your clients has their declaration reviewed and the city determines that they owe the tax? Well, they can appeal it, and there's an appeal process. So it's an appeal process like any other government appeal process. So for realtors, what do you need to know? I mean, many of you manage properties for foreign buyers. You just need to know to keep them occupied. Is there a workaround the vacant tax? One of the thoughts that I had was that possibly an owner could lease out their property to a corporate tenant, and that corporate tenant could then use the property as an Airbnb, for example. Well, the legislation seems to catch that. Again, time will tell, but that was just one kind of workaround that I don't believe will work. So I think it's important that everybody has a clause that they use. I'm going to just maybe see if I can deposit the one that I've recommended people use, and I've just stuck it in the chat. So maybe if you want to look at it. But what this clause says essentially that the seller is going to have to represent and warrant that they have actually filed their declaration on time and then no tax is payable, because if they don't, it becomes a lien on the property, and subsequent buyers, possibly your clients, will be subject to pay that tax if the seller does not. You know, one of the interesting consequences of this vacant tax is for relocation companies. And I don't know if many of you work in that relocation business, but often corporations will guarantee their employees that they'll buy their properties back if they have to relocate their employees. And sometimes these properties can remain vacant for a year or so. These companies would then be subject to that tax. It's really unfortunate because it creates a lot of work for us lawyers now, because we have to make sure not only that our seller clients have filed their declarations, but that buyers, representing buyers, that the sellers that we're buying from have also done that. And I have a feeling this year is going to be a transition year where there's going to be a lot of discussion and negotiation between law firms, because people are not going to file these declarations on time. Okay, I'm going to move on to foreign buyers. In 2016, foreign buyers represented 9% of all purchases. And that quickly fell to 2% once the government implemented the Ontario non-resident speculation tax. It originally was 15% for the greater Golden Horseshoe area. Then it was increased to 20% and impacted all properties. And then Ontario moved it to 25% in October, just before the federal prohibition was implemented on December 2nd. The federal statute is called the Prohibition on Purchase of Residential Property by Non-Canadians. This is a really difficult statute to understand, but simply it's a prohibition on anyone who's a foreigner, as defined, from buying property within certain population centers around Ontario. The government intentionally excluded recreational properties. And how did they do that? They deemed that a residential property was a property in what they call a census agglomeration area or a census metropolitan area. In other words, a population of 10,000 or more for the former and 100,000 or more for the latter. So clearly for most of the agents at RE/MAX, Condos Plus, it applies to all the properties that you may list. So what does the Act do? The Act prohibits purchases directly or indirectly. So what does that mean? That means that an owner can't get their brother-in-law who is Canadian to put the property in his name. They can't use a corporation. They can't use a trustee. They can't do indirectly what they can't do directly. But it's really, really interesting because the CMHC put out a position paper on this statute, asking the government to really tighten up the language in the statute. And what the CMHC wanted to do was to capture every form of transaction, because of course, what do people ask me? They say, Gerry, what's the workaround this? And I remember when the non-resident speculation tax came in, I came up with a workaround, although I never used it, would work. And what was that workaround? That workaround was, instead of a foreigner buying a property, the foreigner would have a Canadian buy the property. The foreigner would advance a mortgage for 100% of the purchase price to that Canadian. That Canadian would later default on that mortgage. The foreigner mortgagee would then foreclose on that property. And that was a way, conceivably, of avoiding the 15% at the time tax. That it doesn't matter anymore, because now people are asking, what is the workaround on this new speculation or a prohibition on foreigners? CMHC wanted to capture rentals as well. So conceivably, a foreigner, say an American, could have their Canadian employer, who is a Canadian resident, buy the property and lease it to the foreigner. And that lease would provide that all the carrying costs would be paid by the tenant, and that the tenant had an option to buy the property at the purchase price that the corporation paid for, when the foreigner would be able to own property in Canada, for example, after 2 years. The present Act does not seem to capture that possibility, and that was a possibility that CMHC was trying to plug. So time will tell, because there's different language in the statute that says, again, you can't do indirectly what you can't do directly. So, I mean, only cases will determine whether that's possible. So what kind of properties does it impact? It impacts all residential properties, such as condos, detached houses, townhouses, that are not more than 3 dwelling units of a building. So if a foreigner wants to buy an apartment building, that seems to be okay. But anything 3 or less, it's going to have to, it is going to be prohibited from buying. It does not include most recreational properties unless they are located in a restricted area. So places like Collingwood, Wasaga Beach that have high populations, that is in a restricted area, and there's a prohibition in those places. It does not include farmland, vacant land, and land that's not zone residential. So people who are buying property in the rural areas and land banking them would still be able to do that. But if those lands, say in York region, that are vacant but are kind of zoned in the official plan as earmarked for residential, they could be prohibited properties. Foreigners can still buy certain mixed use properties, but there is a prohibition on land that's zoned for development, such as shopping centers or office buildings. So these are all the types of properties that are captured by the prohibition. And if you have any kind of specific questions, because it is very confusing and there's not a lot of testing done on it yet, just reach out to me and I'll try and answer the question. Yeah, so please note that a non-Canadian, there are certain exemptions to the prohibition, and that is for people like students, for example, or people here on work permits who have been here for a certain period of time. And again, the exemption qualification is somewhat complicated. So reach out to me if you have a situation that you think might fit into the exemption. And typically they are people here with work permits, and there's lots of people from around the world who have been here for a year, 2 years, or even longer and may want to buy. And what does it mean for them? Students, we have a lot of students from Asia who've been here for years, and it impacts them as well, and they may wish to buy. Okay, so I want to move on to fraudulent sales. This is it never ceases to amaze me at the ingenuity of our criminals. Title fraud happens typically in 2 ways, where the fraudster steals someone's home. In the first instance, a fraudster can apply for a mortgage against somebody else's home, and that usually starts with identity theft. So of course we all kind of know about identity theft, and we have to take steps to avoid that. But that is as a result of someone manipulating the land registry system. And how does that happen? Well, in my office, for example, we have access online to the land registry system, and we can actually change title, something we do every day. If there is somebody in a law office or a paralegal office that has access, then this is how these online filings could happen. So in the first scenario, the fraudster somehow steals the homeowner's identity, obtains ID with their picture on it, and applies to refinance the home. Typically, these are homes with no mortgages, so elderly people who've owned them for a long time. And they represent to the bank that the loans are for a renovation of their home. The bank loves these types of mortgages, approves the mortgage, and sends the mortgage instructions to the lawyer. And often it's any lawyer who the fraudster picks, who is probably doesn't know who the fraudster is and is happy just to do the transaction. The lawyer processes the transaction and pays the money to the fraudster's bank account. The fraudster leaves enough money, say 6 months worth of payments in the account, and then takes the rest of it and leaves. And no one knows about the fraud for 6 months. The second scenario impacts realtors, and this is where, you know, realtors such as yourselves are going to have to become increasingly more diligent to protect against it. The fraudster will identify a home that is vacant, likely a foreign owner who lives in their home country. The fraudster carefully selects properties that are vacant with no activity by really casing them for a number of weeks or months. They then get access to the house, change the locks. They then access the land registry system and change title to their fake name. They then will hire an unsuspecting realtor who, with excitement, signs them to a listing agreement and all of the other documents that you typically sign. The property is staged, sold quickly with a quick closing. The lawyer selected by the seller could be a lawyer referred to by the agent and is an unsuspecting lawyer. The lawyer takes a copy of the seller's fake ID, delivers the bank draft to the seller after closing, and the seller fraudster disappears, only for the real owner to come home and find that someone else is living in their home. I know it's surprising, but this has been happening since the early 90s. And it started happening because back in the late 80s, when a lot of immigrants from Hong Kong were coming to Canada, anticipating the changeover of Hong Kong from England to China to get Canadian citizenship status, but they didn't want to live here. They went back home and lived, but they owned property here. There were homes sitting here vacant for years. And that's when this started to happen. Then the criminal entities from other countries, such as Russia, quickly realized that this was a big money-making opportunity, and has really perfected this process. But of course, the police, RICO, OREA, and FinTrack have all taken steps to prevent these things, so they can be prevented. So how can they be prevented? One of the things I've always recommended to agents do who are listing a property is to ask their seller for the reporting letter when they bought the property. Every seller has a reporting letter, whether it's a physical book that we used to provide or the electronic report that we now provide. Everyone has it. And why is that important? Well, if they can give you their reporting letter, then you know that they're the real deal. If you ask for it and they don't have it, well then fine, you're going to go on your Geo Warehouse and find the information. One of the things you want to do is ask them who their lawyer was when they bought their property, so that you can cross-reference that information with the information that they provide to you. Compare the answers. So asking the right questions is really, really important while identifying your client. Got to follow the FinTrack rules to the letter and make sure that you get photo ID and driver's license. There is an online driver's license validity checking process available by the Ministry of Transportation. So even though it won't tell you personal information about the person with that number, if you're given a driver's license with a number, you can type that number into the website and it will tell you whether it's a valid driver's license number or not. In the recent case where that was highly publicized, had the agent done that, it would have discovered that that driver's license was a forged, fraudulent driver's license. And that would have ended the matter right there. The other thing that I would tell people to do is also, if you're not getting a lot of information from your seller, like for example, they've contacted you remotely because they're in another country, or they only want to meet with you for the most part electronically, do social media, LinkedIn searches and that kind of stuff, just to determine, who the individuals are you're dealing with. Because I think it's important that you do your due diligence, because if you're not, the responsibility is yours. Please know that lawyers are exempt from most FinTrack requirements that you are required to follow. It's interesting. Here's what was reported in this last case. The documents provided by the tenants contain several red flags that the agent should have picked up on. When screening the two potential tenants who later became the fraudsters, the agents collected photocopies of their driver's license, contact information for their employers, and personal reference and credit history checks. They did not follow up or check any of those, nor did they check their driver's license with the ministry free checkup. Had they done any of those things, they would have discovered all of the information was fraudulent. one of the things I did was I went on several real estate forums and chat rooms to see what agents said about these fraudulent sales. Here's what one comment of an agent: how can this ever happen? Usually lawyers should check the ID of sellers. Well, I just started to laugh because, you know, lawyers do that, and we do our due diligence. And typically here at my office, we do check the validity of things. But it all starts with the agent. If the agent hasn't checked it thoroughly, certainly the agent is going to do a lot more of thorough checking than the lawyer is going to. You know, for this to have happened, the fraudsters would have had access to the land titles office to do searches to determine who the registered owners were. One agent said, it seems to this agent that there were two intermediaries who would have been involved to make this work: a real estate broker and a seller's lawyer. Did either ask for the original transfer documents for this property? Well, that was a really intelligent comment, because yes, in order for this to work, the fraudster needs a real estate agent and they need a lawyer. And either of those two entities could have prevented the fraud. So the real, you know, answer to all of this is just be cautious, use your due diligence and common sense. If it seems too easy, and I always say this, if it seems too easy, it is. Get a copy of the reporting letter. If they do not have it, you just increase your due diligence and your FinTrack due diligence. Now, just remember, most property owners have title insurance. So even if this happens to them, for example, one of your seller clients, then they're insured through title insurance. The only exception to this is if a owner is elderly, has no mortgage, and has owned the property since the 90s, they may very well not have title insurance and may very well not be insured. There is title insurance for people in that situation, but it doesn't happen very often. So, but just be sensitive to that. So those are my comments. I'm happy to answer any questions. Okay, so here we go. So Sonia, say someone becomes a Canadian citizen within the last couple of months. Are they exempt? Yes. Was there? Read case study story. As agents, we have a fiduciary duty of confidentiality. How do? Oh no, that's sorry. That was for Jess. The clause hasn't come through yet. Pamela, am I able to share the screen?
Yeah, Gerry, somebody asked about a pre-con. They bought a couple of years ago as a non-resident, and now it's closing after January 1. I think they're they're exempt because it's the date you sign the agreement.
That is correct. I don't have the date handy in front of me, but yeah, anything that was signed pre pre the act would be exempt. And there's a certain date, and I can get that date for you. You know what, Jamie, I'm going to send this clause to you for you to put it on your back end.
Yeah,
and you can circulate to everybody.
Yeah.
And people could use it if they want. I'm sorry, I'm not sure why it shows up on my system.
but not yours. That's all right. Just email it to us, Gerry, and we'll get it out with a bunch of other stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you had to buy before April, I think, of last year for when they announced the act for non-resident purchases.
Yeah, so let me just go to questions. What happens if a buyer purchased last year, say October? How are they supposed to answer the declaration correctly if they don't know the seller's living status of the property in 2022? If you go through the declaration questions, it provides for that on how to respond to those types of questions. My client's unit has been empty for 2022 due to broken window glass, which is challenging fix. The building has been responsible and working on this issue for almost 1.5 years due to the size spent. So there is an exemption for renovations and other things. This may be a situation where the owner would have to file seeking the exemption, but just remember they may be subject to an audit and have to prove this through the audit process. That's the whole purpose of the audit process. How about from Micheline, how about pre-construction closings? Yeah, Jamie just answered that. Yes, I will send the link for the driver. Someone asked, can I share the link? I'll send that as well to yourself and your staff, Jamie. Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
What about condo fraud and property management company who prepares the status certificate for the current seller? Suzanne, I'm not sure I understand the question. Condo fraud and detached home fraud would be exactly the same. Oh, I see. So if somebody has changed the ownership of a condo, then the fraudster could very well have conned the condo corporation as well by advising them of an ownership change and then proceeded to sell the condo. So there's no liability on the condominium corporation if that were to happen. Jessica Dodd said to everybody, just Google the MTO driver's license check. The website came up right on top. Did you, Micheline, did you say ask for a reporting letter? Yes. I mean, we issue a reporting letter on every single transaction, every purchase and every sale. And it used to be bound in a booklet, really pretty. And we would tell people to keep it in a safe place because they're going to need it when they sell, and they should give it to their realtor when they go to list a property. Because, you know, think of a detached home. There are things like encroachments, rights of way, the surveys included in the book, easements and other issues that a realtor should flag when they're preparing the listing. And more importantly, the legal description that you actually need is in that book. Geo Warehouse is not a reliable source. An old listing is not a reliable source. You need to go to the actual transfer. And I see so many problems with agents relying on the Geo Warehouse reports or the MPAC reports because sometimes they're not accurate. They don't include parking or lockers because sometimes if parking and lockers were purchased after the fact, they're not included in a Geo Warehouse report. So the only way to know that is to go to the report. Victoria, title insurance covers sellers in fraudulent cases, but is there such a thing as buyer insurance so that they buy a property which is later determined to be fraudulent? Are they covered? Yes. So when, great question, Victoria. So when a seller has originally bought the property, if someone were to sell their home out from under them, they're covered under title insurance. If a buyer buys a house and gets title insurance that turns out to be a fraudulent sale, then they are also covered because they've got title insurance. And the good news now is that I can say 100% of all our transactions are now title insured. So your clients have that protection. So if they ask you, you just simply say to them, you know, your lawyer is going to talk to you about title insurance and it will cover all of those things. TN, this is related to leases. When we do a lease, do we need to add a clause regarding owner being non-resident? As realtor, we never know the owners, how the owners file their taxes. So it depends on how the rent is paid. A lot of agents seem to manage rental income for foreign clients. I mean, I know some agents have portfolios of 20, 30, 40, 50 units that they manage. If you're managing the money, then yes, you need to know that. If not, if you're just taking your commission and letting the tenant pay the owner directly, then no, you don't care. But it's, you know, as part of your due diligence, you should probably ask the question. Is it primary home, i.e. client travels but only stays in the unit 1 to 2 months a year? Are they exempt? No. If they're not using it as their principal residence for 6 months plus a day, then they're subject to the vacant tax. Sonia, I'm assuming homeowners who bought in the 90s who may not have title, can they buy it? Yes, they can. I know Stewart Title has a policy for existing homeowners. And those are all the questions.
Perfect, Gerry. That was great.
All right. Well, listen, I wish everyone luck. Get yourselves all ready to go by the spring, because I think, the waters are going to start to move, and I wish you the best of luck. If we can do anything to add value to your business, we're more than happy to help.
Great, thanks. Okay, Pamela, you're up next to introduce, I think, Roy.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Pamela, you're muted. Did you want me to introduce Roy?
I think Pamela may have, is she still here? Because I know she had to take off to the airport at 11:30.
I can introduce myself. Everyone knows who I am, I think.
Yeah.
Alrighty, yeah, Pamela's gonna do something before that, but let's jump in with you, Roy, and jump right in with the mortgage minute.
How you doing, everybody? Well, once again, the Bank Canada raised rates today by a 1/4 point. So if you have variable rate, you're going to hate it even more than you did yesterday. The good news is it's going to be the last rate rise for 2023 unless something completely off the wall happens with inflation. It seems that core inflation and the rest of inflation have peaked in 2022 and they're on the way down. So we'll find that over the next little while we're trying to get to 2%, chances are that rates will stay the way they are until either the last quarter of 2023, if they need to do some quantitative easing, or early 2024. Right now, I consider us in what we call no man's land. Because we're kind of at the end of the rate cycle, there is no good decision to be made. If you lock in for 5 years, you're probably going to hate your mortgage in 2. If you take a short term, you're going to hate the rate because it's expensive. Variable rate is also expensive. And right now, the 3-year rates we're get as low as 4.99, and 5-year insured rates are about 4.79, and conventionals are probably around 5.24 to 5.35, depending on who the lender is. So rates have come down quite a bit. Bond yields have definitely dipped anywhere between 60 and 100 basis points on depending on the bond you look at. So rates will be coming down. We just don't know when. Now, if you want to look at the market, I've done more pre-approvals in the first 2 weeks in January than I did probably all of June, July, August, September, October, and November combined. People are coming back to the market, and I think you have about 6 months. And rates don't really affect the buyer. What affects the buyer is the perception of what's happening with rates. If they feel rates are going to continue to rise and property values are going to fall, they will sit on the sidelines and wait. And now people are starting to come back because they realize that rates are as high as they can get. Rates will probably start falling, especially fixed rates. I think the bond yields are below 3%. So we'll probably find that fixed rates will start to fall. And coming March, April, and May, we have the most generous rate wars happening because the last quarter of the year, the banks ended their year in November. They don't care about market share. They care about profitability at the moment. And that will change at the end of the first quarter. Typically, they want to see what kind of numbers they can gather. So you'll probably find there'll be a lot of rate sales coming up, and that will also help buyers qualify for a little bit more. I've been dealing with a couple of clients that are in multiple offers right now, which means that there is some really good traction of buyers coming back to market and not a lot of inventory. Sellers are still being kind of stubborn on prices, and buyers are very, very picky. And what do I mean by that is the fact that if they're going to go in and buy this thing beforehand, they didn't really care what the house looked like as long as they can get one. And now they have time, and you can work with the same client before and lose 20 deals because of multiple offers. Now you're probably showing twice as many homes to the same buyer because they're looking for the ideal home. And if the house is turnkey in a good area, people are buying. They are not hesitating about putting an offer in, putting conditional upon financing, all that kind of stuff. So I think you have about, I'm going to say by the time June rolls around, I think you'll find that a lot of people that have been sitting on the sidelines will come back to market. And now that we can get rates at 4.99, we can qualify them at 6.99. So we can find that people are qualifying for more. End of last year, beginning of this year, we were qualifying people at 8%, which eats up a lot of buying power. So good news is we're kind of out of the woods. Bad news is there's no right decision to make. And I get a lot of calls, if people have variable rate mortgage, they ask me, should I lock in? Should I lock in? Problem is, there is no right answer. You're damned if you lock in because you're not going to be happy in 12 to 24 months. You're damned if you do, or damned if you don't, because now we increased the interest rates another quarter point, so it's going to hurt a little bit more. But this is all going to end soon. As quickly as it came, it shall go. Inflation is a little skewed, and I'll tell you why. In 2021, we're in half lockdown. Most Canadians, we went through actually consumerism of about 4 years in 1 year, which really put a damper on supply, and that's the reason why the cost of goods have been going up. If you notice now, we're kind of back to normal in 2022. People were revenge traveling. People had travel vouchers that they canceled a trip in 2020 that they were using. People didn't even care because they had a lot of CERB money in their pocket and they were spending a ton of money. People are now being a lot more cognizant of where they spend their money. If you notice now, restaurants aren't as busy as they were. If you go to the mall, and the thing that I notice when I go to the mall is how many bags people are carrying, and people are carrying less and less bags out there. So people are starting to slow down their spending. Another good factor is the fact that if you look month over month inflationary from November to December, not seasonally adjusted, we were actually down 0.6% from November, which is a big drop. Retail sales were down by 0.5%, and they expected a growth in December. So we're heading in the right direction. And I think that we'll probably get to 3% inflation sometime by July. And they're looking at a very abysmal, I think, a 2% economic growth worldwide this year, and 2.5% for next year. So I'm going to say that, will we get to the 1% range again, or 2% range in mortgages? I'm going to say definitely not. I think we're going to settle around rates that were probably more like 2019 rates, where you get a 5-year fixed rate into high 3s and low 4s. And the variable rate should settle in somewhere, or the prime rate should settle in somewhere around 4.5% by the time this is all said and done in 2024. And that, my folks, is the Mortgage Minute. Roy, based on your knowledge and what you are seeing as a buyer, when should they be buying? As a seller, they should be aiming to get their property on the, okay. First of all, I think that if things like this stop you from buying, then you shouldn't buy. But I think that right now, as you're seeing, as buyers are starting to come back, a lot of first-time buyers are coming back. I think that they should start buying sooner than later. I think that come down June and even July, I think the spring market's going to be quite active. So they can pay a little bit more of a rate today, or pay a lot more for a house come to the end of the year. And I'll be honest with you, like, sellers, they can be a little bit stubborn on price, but if they're realistic and they need to sell, good properties are selling pretty close to what they should be selling for. They're not, January 2023, 2022 prices or February 2022 prices, but those were already inflated. But the city of Toronto 416 and places in Oakville, if your property is $1.7 million or less, you're finding you're getting a lot of multiple offers because that's the sweet spot right now. So if I was going to buy, I'd start looking to buy immediately. I don't think there's a time to waste. The good news is if they buy today, they're going to close probably 60 or 90 days, and that'll put them into the spring mortgage market, which means that there'll be some rate sales. The rate today, they may lock in at 5% and end up paying somewhere around 4.5% come 2 months from now. So if you're looking to buy, I say jump in as soon as you can. Sellers, you sell when you have to sell. If you don't want to sell, you don't sell. That's that. The sellers will come to market, and I'll tell you one thing: the what we haven't seen a lot yet is all the people who bought in January, February, March, April, who are in the subprime market, are coming in for a big sticker shock because they're going to go from rates of 3.39, 3.69, and they're going to be as almost 7% in a renewal. So those people will probably look at having to sell, and that'll add a little bit more inventory in the marketplace. Any other questions? All right, so right now I said 3-year fixed rates are 4.99. There's some 5-year insurables at 4.69, I think it is. So rates are coming the right way. It's you may not get the cheapest rate, but if you're looking to buy, it's the best time to buy is right now. Remember, you marry the property, you date the rate.
Thanks, Roy.
Thanks,
welcome,
Roy.
guys. Take care, guys.
Okay.
So I guess if I could talk about the training, especially the training that we have with Chris Leader.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So in conjunction with RE/MAX Ultimate, we are going to be doing a video training program that's going to be supported in-house by some coaching and accountability sessions. So I'll be working along with Matthew. Matthew, I know I saw your name on the list, so I think you're here. I'm waving even though I have my camera off. But these sessions, I started doing them myself. They're actually quite good. It's a full, robust sales training program for real estate professionals. It will walk you through all of the different content from, what are your plans for the year, to the tactics that will actually help you achieve those plans. There's an app. So the first session will be February 1st, where we'll walk you through and talk about what the program is like. Inside the program, there's a series of videos, there's PDF workbooks for you. And so rather than us going live and doing it, it's going to be an amazing program done through conjunction with a series of videos and the coaching session. So I wanted to bring that to your attention because it is something that's going to be very special. And, it'll be a series of it. There's 16 actual modules, and we will be doing sessions every other week just to help you out and to make sure that you're on the right track, that you've got somebody to help coach you through or work through some of the content. And you will be joined with some of our colleagues from RE/MAX Ultimate, along with all of our sub brokerages, people who wish to attend that. So you'll be able to get the link for that as soon as you identify that this is something that you're interested in. We'll get you the link so you can actually start working through some of the material and downloading the app and getting started with registering. So that is available now. Super exciting that we're working on that with our colleagues at RE/MAX Ultimate, and looking forward to that. I'm just checking to see. Nope, no chat for me. All right.
Okay, do you want me to
Yeah.
go on? Okay. We'll be continuing doing KV Core training every other week. That's pretty self-explanatory, so I'm not going to talk about that. These are all just the upcoming training sessions, right, Pamela?
Yes.
Yeah, so we're gonna be doing one on neighborhood mail again, on how to send mail out, so keep that in your calendar. And then, Shauna, I don't know if you want to talk about your closing skills again, or while we're here. Oh, you're muted.
Oh, hey, hi. Sorry, I couldn't find my unmute button, which for me is a big challenge. I need to be able to talk. So, hi, everybody. I was talking to Pamela and we were talking about, things people do to follow up after closing. And I was talking about how I wasn't really good at that. So Pamela charged me with putting together a workshop so we can talk about things people do to follow up after closing and what some of those effective tools might be. So I'll be talking about that on is that the 16th, Jackie, of February? I'm going to be doing that on Zoom. So I hope you'll come by if you're looking for ideas and strategies to follow up and work with people after closing. Thanks.
Okay. Pamela, did you want to, we're gonna be doing a bit more. We're
So
trying
we
to do a bit more social events. You go ahead, Pamela, you're better.
Yes,
Well.
so we saw that again, Remax Ultimate was doing some more networking, and it's a great time now with things kind of getting back to normal, that we spread our wings and do some happy hour networking events. So at these events, we will be inviting special guests to come. They'll be hosted by either one of the managers or one of the team leaders within the organization. And our first one is planned for the end of February, February 22nd at the Amsterdam Brew Pub. Hopefully we'll have better weather in February. I don't know if that's a dream that's not to happen or not, but nonetheless. And although we haven't chosen our guest yet, we will be choosing a guest who will be coming in and being our presenter and kind of sharing, giving you an opportunity, but it's going to be very informal. So again, just gives us an opportunity to be able to network and again, invite some guests to come and meet with us so that we can get some more information. So we're looking forward to these happy hour networking events, which I think the plan right now is every other month is what we talked about. So February will be the first one. And this session, the open house extravaganza, Shauna and I will be working on some open house techniques and skills. Some of these are going to be things that you've known all along. And again, I go back to thinking about the open house that Shauna and I ran a few years ago, where we had a number of tactics involved with doing the open house that's designed to not only bring a spotlight to the open house, the property itself, but also hopefully looking for other people who may assist with, becoming a future buyer, or perhaps they know somebody who wants to move into the neighborhood. So we're going to talk about those tactics and skills. So you'll see that on February 23rd at 10 a.m. That will be an in-person session. So note now that some of our sessions are in person. They're not going to all be Zoom sessions. So we're going to have a combination of that, but we are going to gear ourselves to doing more and more and more in-person sessions because we miss seeing you. So it'll be really nice to have you at some of these sessions that we have going forward. So just watch out, but when we do the confirmation, we'll note whether it's in person or a virtual session. So our first 15, we've got that save the date for March the 8th. So again, just a little bit around the corner.
Yeah, we'll be sending out invites, but just to kind of keep it on your radar, as well as we'll be having our awards ceremony in early April following that.
And
That's
yes,
right.
our awards.
Do we have a
Go
date
ahead.
for that?
We can't seem to get agents into the office. So what we're trying to do is try to schedule an outside event every month for things for people to look forward to and to get together. So that's what we're striving to do. So we have the first 15, the luncheon in the distillery. And then in April, we will have our Remax Awards and all the awards and ceremonies that go with that. And that's open to everyone in April. So look for the date for that.
Okay.
All righty.
And I always like to save, excuse me, I always like to save a few minutes at the end of our meetings for property showcase. This is if you've got a property that you wanted to highlight, if you've got clients that are looking for things. I've been seeing lots of comments in the WhatsApp chat. And for those of you that are not a member of the assignment chat group, let me know, because I think I can get you in to that WhatsApp chat group as well. Lots of stuff located there. But property showcase, anybody have something they would like to share? I know, Alex, I was watching your video the other day, the session that you did on Calgary. I don't know if you're still on or not, but it was excellent, very well presented. I know Alex, Zed, you and Carmelo had done a session, and I hope that went well for you as well. I'm seeing some chat items. Daniel Lee has, anybody has a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom with parking in downtown Toronto to buy, I'm assuming, price point, Daniel? Up to 900K. Thank you.
Speak up,
Thanks, Andrew.
1.5 million. What is it?
I actually have 3 properties coming up. 2 are 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom units at Sugar Wharf. These were actually the construction office and the PDI office, so everything's on the builder's form. Those 3-bedroom, 2 bathrooms will be at 1.4. It's south facing, but on lower floors. And I have a 2+ den, which is an amazing layout on the 9th floor, but it is going to be over 1.5. 986 square feet.
Alrighty.
I also have about 1 million rental listings there. So if anyone's looking for March, April, hit me up, because I'm not putting all the stuff on until I get the keys.
What's that at Sugar Wharf?
Sugar Wharf, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Nice.
Nice.
All right. Well, people, I have to go, but feel free if there's more chatter going on. I know it'll be recorded, but I will look to speak with you again really soon.
Well, from the sun, it's snowing here, Pamela, so have a safe trip back. Okay, guys, we're pretty well at the end. Email me if you want more information on Jess, and we'll put some stuff together on her and her program. So, you know, we have a variety of training programs. Chris Leader is more of the basic stuff. And I would just say that Jess Lenouvel is all about taking people that are doing over 100,000 and are really focused on getting to, as she says, a 7-figure income. So we'll get some books on her program, and she does have a training program where people sign up and she coaches them. She and her people coach you. So that's it. I see we're winding down. Has anybody got any last words? If not, I want to thank everyone for joining us, and it was a great meeting. We had a great turnout, and we'll talk soon. Okay, thank you.